Hi everyone. We're temporarily moving to an online format. As soon as things have a chance to settle down, we'll go back to the live classes. That's right. All right. Let's dive in with some music theory fundamentals. For our purposes, what is sound? Well, the answer can be as complicated as you want it to be. But one definition of sound is pressure waves that travel through the air or water. And one property of sound is its pitch or its frequency. Frequencies are measured in hertz. The higher the frequency, the larger the number in hertz. For instance, this tone is 400 hertz. And this one is 1000 hertz. Now the pitch is higher to your ear and the number is bigger in hertz, right? So pitch is a specific frequency of sound, maybe created by a guitar string or a flute, I suppose. A pitch. Us humans have the ability to hear a wide range of sound frequencies ranging from about 20 hertz, 20 cycles a second, to 20,000 hertz on average. A great story I heard years ago when cell phones were becoming popular. I was talking to a middle school teacher, and she was telling me how the kids were using ringtones on their phones that used pitches that were so high, like 17,000 hertz. The teachers couldn't hear them anymore, but the kids and their relatively fresh ears could. So they had stealth ringers, those wacky kids. Anyway, pitch is a specific frequency of sound, like 440 hertz. Okay, now I'm going to play two notes on the flute. Now the pitch of the second note was higher than the first note. I'll play them again so you can hear it. All right? Pretty obvious. A note is nothing more than just a name for a particular pitch. Anyone who took music lessons probably remembers that the notes are named with an alphabetic letter, right? Ranging from A to G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And each of the notes has its own pitch. All right, time for a review. Okay, we're talking about some music theory fundamentals. Music is all about sound, right? And we said that sound is pressure waves that travel through the air or water. And one property of sound is its pitch or its frequency. And frequency is measured in units called hertz. And pitch is a specific frequency of sound, like 400 hertz, right? And a note is just a name for a particular pitch, like B flat. So, keep in mind, our ears don't hear all pitches equally, not by a long shot. We actually have very imperfect hearing. As it turns out, our hearing is most sensitive at the frequencies made by a human baby crying. Yes, there's a reason that a baby's crying seems to carry forever and ever and ever and ever. So it's right where our hearing sensitivity is the greatest. That's between about 1,000 and 5,000 hertz, by the way. And 1,000 hertz, like we've been saying, is an example of a frequency. Now, timbre is like a sound color or a quality that comes from different instruments. The word comes from Middle English to refer to a bell or a drum. Two instruments can play the same note, but they sound different because of the timbre. For instance, It's the same note, but it's different instruments. One's flute, one's vocal. So the same note has a different tone quality, or a timbre. Now, when we see music as a language, it's easy to realize that the notes in music are like the alphabet of a language. The notes are simply the pitch foundation of all music. So there are how many notes in Western music? 12, right? Which is historically derived from European music. It's by far the most common music system that we hear today. There are other music systems out there, like Indian, African, Chinese, and other traditional folk music, which are all different and make use of different scales. So I want to tell you about a 20th century composer right here from America that you've probably never heard of or heard music from. Harry Partch. Harry didn't just compose new songs, he created a whole new scale and his own instruments as well. I was introduced to the music and the instruments of Harry Partch at San Diego State University, where I went to school. One of the instructors there, named Danley Mitchell, was assistant to Harry Partch for about 20 years and is the executor of his estate, sort of his protege. So I actually got to see and play several of these truly unique instruments, some of which were stored on the campus. Instead of dividing the octave into 12 notes, chromatic scale, all an equal distance away from each other, Harry Partch divided his octave into 43 notes, all different distances from each other. And to play his music, he created many new instruments, or modified existing ones. Partch called himself a philosophic music man seduced into carpentry. I'm guessing that's because he made his own instruments out of wood, out of necessity. These instruments are beautiful to look at, though, as they were uniquely named as well. Like the Chromelodeon II. The Chromelodeon, gotta get that right, is a modified reed organ, retuned to Harry Partch's 43-note scale. The knobs over the keyboard made it possible for the player to make triads sound with just one key press on the keyboard. All the notes on this instrument put together could only play less than 2 octaves in his scale system, because he's got a 43-note scale system, and a regular full piano keyboard only has 88 notes. The same instrument tuned to our system can play 8 octaves. So let's take a listen to it.
It's January 26th. I'm freezing. Ed Fitzgerald, age 19.
The Chromelodeon is a reedy sound, and you notice how the pitch seems to change slightly. Those are actually different notes on the instrument.
And I'm hungry and broke. I wish I was dead. But today I am a man. Going home to Boston, Yonge, Massachusetts. It's 4 p.m. and I'm hungry and broke. I wish I was dead. But today I am a man. Oh, I'm going home to Boston, Yonge, Massachusetts.
That's weird. All right, next is the adapted viola. This has a standard viola's body with an extra long fingerboard. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see those shiny little dots on that black fingerboard. Those are brass brads placed there to help the player hit the right note when he's forming his notes. Remember, we're talking about a 43-note scale. This is just insane. The bamboo marimba. This is made up of 64 pieces of bamboo, closed on one end, and then with a tuned tongue cut in the open end. Those numbers that you see painted on the tubes refer to tones in Partch's tuning system. There were a lot of fractions involved in his scale because he derived it from his concept of nature. The marimba eroica. Okay, this is my favorite. I got to play one single note on this exact instrument in college. The tone bar is the slat on the top, and there are only 4 notes possible on this instrument. As I recall, the tallest one stood about 4.5 feet tall, so you'd stand on that little stool with the red carpet to play it. You'd use this huge fluffy stick that looked like a giant Q-tip, and when you played a note, you'd hear nothing. The tone it made was so low that you could really only hear it with your body. You couldn't hear it really with your ears, but you could feel the air move, but it wasn't really a tone. It was so cool. All right, moving on to the bass marimba. The notes on this are audible, and it sounds pretty much like a normal marimba. To me, the interesting aspects of this are more concerning its construction. The top of the bars stand 5 feet above the floor, which is about my shoulder height, so you had to stand on a riser to play it. You might be able to see the fractions inscribed on the tone bars. The tone bars are the horizontal slats with the fractions on them, and a lot of the sound comes from the resonators that are beneath them. Partch used wooden organ pipes as resonators for this instrument. The cloud chamber bowls. These are gongs made from recycled Pyrex that you strike carefully with mallets. They used to break all the time. He was constantly repairing them. The diamond marimba. This instrument only makes 29 different pitches, not even one whole octave in Partch's 43-note scale. By the way, I personally think it's a nice touch that he had those built-in beautiful wood music stands for a lot of these instruments. You'll see them probably in almost all these pictures. As a performing musician, I really appreciate that. I have a clip of the diamond marimba in action. There it is. It sounds just like a normal marimba, but it looks different.
January 26th. I'm freezing. Ed Fitzgerald, age 19, 5 feet 10 inches, black hair, brown eyes, going home to Boston.
You notice how the text is written to be evocative?
It's 4 and I'm hungry and broke. I wish I was dead, but today I am a man.
The voice notes sound
to Boston, Massachusetts.
The voice notes sound almost like normal, but with a twinge in the pitch.
And I'm hungry and broke. I wish I was dead. But today I am a man. Oh, I'm going home to Boston, Massachusetts.
What an ending. When you're acting on stage, like a regular actor, you just get text, right? You get the dialogue, and as an actor, you have to do a lot of interpretation and inflection. But in music like this, the composer has given you the notes written down how the way he or she wants you to sing. So much less of this is left up to the imagination. In some ways with music, you're told how to sing, how to inflect, what sort of interpretation you want, that the composer wants. Anyway, that's the diamond marimba. Another instrument is the gourd tree and cone gongs. These are actually two separate instruments, but they were normally played by one person, so here they are. The cone gongs, which are on the right, are so named because they're made of nose cones from airplane fuel tanks. More recycling. Parch did a lot of recycling. The Mazda marimba. This was a bunch of different sized light bulbs with the interior components removed. When they were struck with a soft mallet, they made a little dink-dink sound. That's how they sound. And to me, the most spectacular instrument in the collection is the last that I'm going to show you, with an equally spectacular and difficult to pronounce name. I hope I'm going to get this right. The Quadrangularis reversum. Got it. Do you see those upside down triangles on the left, tone bars? Do you know what they're for? If you do, I'd like to know. I have absolutely no idea. Probably related to the circles on the right tone bars. But it's a spectacular looking instrument. And I would guess it's a difficult one to transport to the gig. That thing is huge. It's like 8 feet across. Well, I know you're dreading the next question. What does his music sound like? You notice that most of the instruments here are rhythm instruments, meaning that you make the sound by striking something. So this is what's going on here. You hear drums, traditional percussion instruments, marimbas, the Mazda marimba, point, point. And even though it's foreign, you can notice some comforting aspects here. The rhythms repeat over and over and over. So there seems to be a repeating time signature at work. All right, Harry Parch. Enough of him. All right, we're going to talk about now a tune that you're actually familiar with, I think. We're going to take a listen to My Girl by The Temptations. Now, music is an art form, and one might say that the aim of an art form is to produce some sort of feeling or reaction to the art, right? Some music makes you sad, some makes you happy, some makes you want to dance, etc. For My Girl, what sort of emotion do you think that they were going for? Sad? Happy? Frustrated? Mad? Well, let's rip the song apart a little bit and see what we find. For one thing, it's in a major key, like Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. It's happy. Not in a minor key like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Bum, 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 right? A major key has an effect on us. It tends to make a song more uplifting or happy, wouldn't you say? Of course, the lyrics are what most people tend to concentrate on. And they sound like they're pretty happy lyrics, right? If you remember the lyrics to My Girl. I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My girl. Talking about my girl. My girl. Doot, 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 right? So that sounds pretty happy to me. So My Girl is in a major key, the moral of the story, which makes it sound happy. And the lyrics seem to be talking about happy things, which seems to be proving the point that this is meant to be a joyous tune. Now, I know that all of this might seem obvious to some of you, but the point of music appreciation is to consciously recognize things about this art form that you may have intuitively understood, but never consciously thought about before. So we're recognizing different aspects of this song and how they add up to produce its desired effect. In this case, happiness, joy. Another common aspect of music is how it builds in intensity over time. My Girl, rather, is a perfect example of this. It starts with the bass alone, right, at the beginning, the intro, and then it adds guitar, drums, and finally vocals. Also later, the song changes key. It goes up a step, right? This has the effect of creating more excitement without having to create a new melody or chord changes for the song. So let's listen to My Girl by The Temptations with a critical ear for these aspects of the tune. Bass alone, and then we add guitar. So we're building, right?
I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month of May.
And now things are going to get thicker. We add more vocals and horns.
I guess you said, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, my girl, talking about my girl, my girl. I've got so
And now we reset.
honey.
Go back down for verse 2.
I've got a sweeter song than the birds in the trees. Well, I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, my girl, talking about my
And now we reset the intensity. Boom, boom. All the way back to the beginning of the song. And we rebuild.
hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey.
Now we're starting to change the chords here. Getting ready for the key change. Make it more exciting.
I don't need no money or
And even though we have the same melody and we've got the same harmony, they keep it from getting boring by having each group of instruments playing a different line. The strings are doing something completely different than the vocals, which is different than the background vocals, etc.
Make me feel this way, my girl, talking about my girl, my girl. I've got sunshine on a cloudy day with my girl. I've even got the month of May with
And in this case, they create the ending by slowly fading the music out. But a lot of songs have a written out ending though, don't they?
my girl. That's all I can talk about is my girl.
All right, time for you to sing along now. Let's give it a try. I've got sunshine on a cloudy day, and it's cold outside. I've got the month of May. Okay, you all know this part of it. Well, don't I guess you say what can make me feel this way, my girl? Talking about my girl, I've got so much honey, the bees envy me. I've got a sweeter song than the birds in the trees. Second time's a charm. Well, I guess you say what can make me feel this way, my girl. Talking about my girl. I don't need no money, fortune or fame. I got all the riches, baby, one man can claim. Well, I guess you say what can make me feel this way, my girl. Talking about my girl. I've got sunshine on a cloudy day, my girl. I've even got the month of May with my girl. Talking about my girl. Ooh, my girl. It's all I can talk about is my girl. Good job, everybody. Well, that's all for this week. But I'll be working on next week's class starting right now. So if you have any questions or any answers or any feedback at all, just feel free to leave a message at 858-278-1506. I'll be giving that phone number to Vanessa as well, so you don't have to worry about writing it down before it disappears from the screen. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.